Hello guys, my name is Borax, and I watch almost all of the highlights for every game in the LCS. Yes, that includes every time CLG and Immortals plays, but I will admit sometimes I press L on my keyboard in order to fast forward those games a bit. Sometimes I will even watch the full game if it's playoffs, as the hype behind those are amazing. When it comes to Worlds, I will definitely try and catch my favorite teams whenever they are playing. My all-time favorite team for me was UOL in the LEC, as they played such a fun and creative style, and even though they could never make it to Worlds somehow, they had always captured my heart. Despite disbanding, I still follow Hillosang, who is my all-time favorite player, and Power of Evil, and I will root for them even though they are on two teams which I have generally disliked for most of my life. You see, when it comes to more traditional sports, where you play with a ball and actually move out of a chair, I'm actually dedicated to the team and don't like to bandwagon one bit. But when it comes to esports, where there are only 5 people during a whole match, it's much more easy to be a fan of the individual players. Now you might be wondering what any of this has to do with the import rule that this video will be talking about, and I would like to make the case that people enjoy individual players based on their performance in-game, their attitude, and even personality. And honestly, I don't think it matters one bit where they come from. In this video, I will make the case that getting rid of the import rule wouldn't change how our league looks dramatically, because we already are a league full of non-NA players, and the reason why it wouldn't change too much afterwards is, in my opinion, due to a little thing called money. Let's start off by taking a look at the current standings for the LCS this season. Okay, first off, why on earth is there a point system? Like, why are teams getting 3 points for wins and 0 points for losses? Okay, I will admit I saw someone else commenting about this on a YouTube video, and I'm sorry I can't give them credit, but they're absolutely right. If there are no ties to be had in competitive play, then having this point system just to give teams these random inflated points is really, really silly. But that's unimportant. Oh, and the fact that when I Google LCS standings, Evil Geniuses just doesn't have a picture is also, I mean, it's whatever. So let's go over each team one by one and see how wonderful the current import system has worked in keeping the NALCS a beautiful limited import region. America, America, and Canada, and does Mexico count? So let's go over how the LCS import rule works. And pretty much it is that, it's very simply, each team can only have 2 non-NA players. Simple. So, now let's look at the rosters. In first place, we have Cloud9, who have the American Patriot Blabber in the jungle, future Canadian McDonald's worker Vulcan in the support role, followed by Jeff Bezos, Perks in the mid lane. Okay, first non-American, but that's fine. Sven in the bot lane, still following the only 2 non-Americans rule, and finally in the top lane, a perfectly English-speaking Fudge in the top lane. Wait, that's not a North American. Okay, so the first team is already breaking the rules, you might be thinking, but no, do not fear. You can break the import rule as long as every single flag on your team is red, white, and blue to honor America. So there, team is still legal. Now, on to the next team. Okay, I'm just kidding. The official rule is that you're also allowed to have Oceania players on your team, and they no longer take up an import spot. The reason why everyone is perfectly fine with this is kind of strange, but maybe it's because they still speak English, so they think it's fine. But yeah, this team, while only having 2 North Americans, is still legal, and most people are perfectly fine with it. And the players on it would hate to see the import rule change, because they love their fellow compatriots. Or maybe because the team can exploit some other stuff in the rulebook we will soon see, but let's continue for now. Next up in second place we have Dignitas, and I won't give an explanation for why they are second, except maybe they are channeling the beautiful power of having a full North American team. And I think that's so inspirational that instead of saying anything to introduce them, I will play for you my favorite inspirational song on the YouTube music library list.
You, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
That you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of your ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Patriotism. Isn't it beautiful? Now, let's keep looking at some teams that could actually be good in the future. Oh, never mind, next up we have TSM. Let's take a look at their lineup of 3 North Americans and maximum 2 imports. Alright, are you ready? Let's start off with the North Americans. Okay, we did it. Now, let's do the Oceanian players who also count as North Americans, and why that is okay is completely lost to me. Now, let's take a look at the non-North Americans. Everyone else, including technically lost. Now, how can this be? This doesn't follow the rules of 3 North Americans or Oceanic players, and it doesn't even follow the made-up rule of having the right flags, as there are too many yellows and blacks. Now, whoa, that sounded really wrong. Anywho, now you might have noticed the little NAs next to Spica and Huni. That is because they have earned this thing called NA residency. The way they accomplish this is by they have lived in a region for 2 years to become the residents, and they have participated in more than or equal to 50% of matches in the regular season for 8 of the last 12 splits. Also, while I was researching this, I found something else out. As you can see, Mexico actually isn't North America. We just call it North America because we were too lazy to come up with another term for the region. Let's be real, we could call it the European colonies that made sure to suppress the natives severely, but that might be a little too political. Okay, so now we have another rule to add to this import restriction that we currently have in place. This is how the LCS is set up and how teams look. With this full understanding, let's take a more brief look at the rest of the teams. And the thing we will concentrate on is how many true North Americans that they have on the roster versus people who are technically imports. And for me, the true North Americans will be the Canadians and the United States players. On 100 Thieves, we have Someday, Closer, Demonte, FBI, and Hui. So technically only one player from North America. I was honestly surprised that Hui was listed as Korean in Leagopedia. For some reason, I thought he had always been in America. Same with Spica. But when I looked closer, he was actually born in France, that is Hui, and is of South Korean residency initially, so you learn something new every day. Okay, 100 Thieves, only one American player. Maybe that's just an outlier. Next up, we have the team Image Not Found, with the team of Impact, Svenskeren, Jizuke, Deftly, and Ignar. Oh, again, only one true North American on the team? Okay, 2 outliers can be ignored. Next team, please. Ah, yes, Team Liquid. Oh wait, I should have talked about them fourth, but here is good for now. They have Alfari, Santorin, Jensen, Tactical, and Core JJ. Ah, yes, I see. 4 more non-North Americans. Ooh, man, and all these teams you were saying are near the top with the 4 importish style players? Outside of Cloud9, of course, and okay, Dignitas. Oh god. Well, let's take a look at the next couple of teams. Here are the bottom 4, and let's see if we can see a trend. Here we have Immortals, with Revenge, an American. Circe, I remember your UOL days, papa, in the jungle. Insanity, another American. And Raze and Destiny, filling out the roster. Hey, look at that! 2 true non-import players, and technically they have 1 legal import slot left, which is the first team since Dignitas to have it. Which is interesting and something I will bring back later. Next up we have FlyQuest with NA players in Licorice, Palofax, Johnson, and Diamond. And the most exciting player to watch on their team, ignore that. I mean their import, Jose Diodo. Hooray! A team of very few imports of any kind, and they have a whopping 9 wins in 9 games. 9 points. My apologies. Penultimately, what a fancy word. We have Golden Guardians, who also have 4 NA players in Niles, Iconic, Ablaze Olive, Stixay, and their 1 import player Newbie. Another team with lots of true NA players sitting in 9th. Interesting. Last but not least, we have CLG, who have 1 million players, but of those who actually start, we have Finn and Broxa, the imports, and their 3 North American buddies in RJS, Wild Turtle, and Smoothly. Smoothly? What? I meant Smoothly. Finally, a team that has the perfect balance of 2 imports and 3 native players, happily sitting in last place. Now, you might be wondering what on earth did I bring any of this up for, and that's a fair question, but I want to show you how this league is already filled with tons of imports. In fact, when you tally it up, 26 players are not from North America, and only 24 players are North American. If we actually had only 2 imports for every team, we should have 33.33 players from North America, and trust me, some of these North American players feel like 1/3 of a player. So clearly this league is already majority import players, and people seem to be enjoying that already. Now then, let's take into consideration the counter-argument around the point that I am making, which will focus on the idea of the residency rule. People always bring up the fact that they like the idea of having the imports have to earn their stars and stripes and maple leaves here by playing here for 2 years before we can adopt them into our league and into our heart. And why is that? Well, I have some people argue that they don't feel the connection to the players if there is some random person from another region that no one has heard of. Okay, I can understand your thinking. That seems very logical. If it's just a random player from another region, it's hard as a fan to get hyped up about them. But does it actually have to do with the region at all at the end of the day? Take a player like RJS, for example. I know absolutely nothing about him. I feel no connection to him outside of the fact that I guess he is North American. His play doesn't do much to excite me, and I kind of just know that he exists. Then there's someone like Jose Diodo. His exciting, aggressive playstyle gets me hyped. He has really cool hair. Those are things I can get behind. Do I feel a disconnect from him because he isn't North American? Not really. I think it's kinda cool, actually. Also, this isn't even a picture of RJS. That's CLG Academy jungler Keel, and the fact that some of you didn't even notice at first shows that you probably don't care too much about this player, even though he is a North American. At the end of the day, my argument is that any random player is any random player, no matter where they come from. All that really should matter is how skilled they are at the game, and how much fun it is to watch them play. Now then, let's take a look at some more counterpoints that Voyboy made in his video, link in the description, and I think it is a pretty interesting one to watch, especially because he is an actual former player in the scene. Here's the first point that he makes that I want to discuss.
LCS teams have suddenly no need to even field any NA players. What's to stop, another full 5-man roster from Korea or China or EU just to come in and take up an NA-LCS spot? And, that's, in my opinion, it doesn't really feel like, a North American league.
He mentions the fact that there is no longer a need for teams to field a full North American team, but that is already happening today. Most of the top teams that we see in this region are already imports, and I believe there will be a reason for people to field North American talent despite all this. I mean, after all, there is a full American team in Dignitas and other teams who have not yet used their import slots. Haven't people realized that teams are still utilizing North American talent when they could already be using imports? I mean, realistically, what's stopping them from getting those random players to plop into their team?
What happens to our NA region? What happens to the players that are either currently pro, in academy, in amateur, trying to make it, or, an aspiring pro? What happens to the youngsters who are so good at the game? What happens to Repoba and General Sniper and these young kids that never got a chance to compete, aren't even old enough, but have dreams and have the skills and might want to one day show what they have on the world stage?
Voy talks about how in our NA region, there is all of this talent that is developing and is eager to make it into the LCS. These great North American players want to prove themselves. Well, here's the thing. Anyone who is talented at the game of League of Legends should be able to make it onto the best teams. I don't think it should matter what region they come from. The problem is North American talent just isn't as good as other regions, it seems. It's sad to say, but it's sort of true for several reasons I talk about later. And forcing us, the fans, to watch worse players play on NA teams just because they are North American isn't fair to the fans, and to be honest, it isn't fair to the players in other regions who are extremely talented and don't get the chance to compete because their infrastructure isn't as good. Isn't that the reason we allow Oceania players to play in our region after all? Because at the end of the day, some of those players are just more talented than others.
If we just remove the import rule and allow NA teams to field anyone they want with as many players they want, that's not going to suddenly make our NA teams better. You can't just import a whole team. You can't just put Faker in the mid lane for, an NA team and expect, okay, now we're going to win Worlds, right? Like, there's so much that has to be worked on and improved and tinkered with to try to find the solutions for how to make NA LCS teams, competitive at the world stage. And we're far from the answer.
Voyboy makes the case that getting rid of our import rule will not make our LCS teams automatically be better, and this will not cause us to insta-win Worlds. And I agree with this 100%. We do need to tinker with things and to make our teams more competitive. The argument that I would make, though, is if we start allowing teams to import better players, regardless of how they pronounce the word color, would be a good start into making our region better.
Right? But we have to keep looking for solutions. But to try to suggest that removing the import rule, creating a free-for-all system in NA, removing the entire concept of NALCS and our own North American Regional League, shattering the hopes and dreams of so many wannabe players and pros and young kids who are just fans of League of Legends but maybe want to try hard and improve over the years and try to get there one day. To take all of that away in a system that is already so hard.
Voyboy argues that our own talented players aren't making it and aren't allowed to compete on the world stage. And I'm sorry to say it, but it doesn't really look like we have the talent compared to other regions at the moment, and there are several reasons for that in my opinion. Voyboy says there's so much more that has to go into it and solutions need to be analyzed, and I agree with that fully. Here's what I believe should be done and what almost everyone has said from what I've seen. We need to fix the freaking internet problem. First of all, the fact that America has not amazing internet in general when compared to the rest of the world, which I am getting from hearing all the pro imports complaining about it when they get here, or the solo queue players who go overseas and rave about the better internet it's over there, and of course the fact that NA only has one server and it's in freaking Chicago while the headquarters for the LCS is in California. Of course the internet speeds are bad, and I think it's a big reason why our talent is so far behind the other regions, because when we try and flash kick Zhonya's as Lee Sin in our region, we just attempt to reconnect instead. Another reason why I think our talent is going to be worse compared to other regions is because of something called numbers. I mean, look at it. We have less population than other regions on our ranked servers, so it's not shocking that we have less talent in general. Like, if you consider the fact that only a minute percent of the population on the ranked servers are actually this skilled to make it to professional teams, then of course there should be less skilled North American players. A solution to make the North American teams look better is to have the amount of them, because if you compare it to Europe, we pretty much only have half the players.
I can't see any world in which this is good for the NA player base, NA LCS, and I feel like the only people that could benefit from this at the end of the day are really the team owners.
This is one of Voyboy's final thoughts. He says that the only people that can benefit from this change are the team owners, but I disagree so much. A lot of people would benefit from this. In fact, every single player in the entire world would benefit from this outside of the North Americans, or the North American veterans who exist here. They would greatly suffer from this change because instead of being able to coast for a paycheck year to year, they would actually have to work their butts off in order to continue to earn the privilege of playing in the NA LCS. And there is another group of people who would benefit, and it's the fans. Imagine you go to a game of League of Legends in an arena, and instead of seeing some random North American, it's Perks versus Faker during the regular season. Just imagine how awesome that would be as a fan. Would you really rather have DeMonte versus RJS? If you said yes, please, 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 for the love of God, go to your mirror right now and look at it and say, I need to chill out with being a devil's advocate, just for the sake of being a devil's advocate. Simply put, I believe that getting rid of the import rule in theory would increase the talent pool that our teams can pick from, increase teams' flexibility, and therefore increase fans' overall enjoyment of this esport. What would be hampered is the fact that it would be harder to get into the LCS for people in North America, but it would be harder for a good reason. It would mean people would have to be better at the game in order to be on a team, and I don't think that's a bad thing. What needs to be done is we need to find out a way to improve our development so that we can reach the skill level of other players, and to do that could be started by improving our internet in other ways, which I could make a whole other video on. In fact, I actually could keep talking about this subject for a lot longer. Some more things I want to talk about are problems that I see and believe are hampering our success on the international stage, the case for still using NA talent, and I'd love to talk about the financial side of things when it comes to the LCS, but that could all be broken down into other videos, and I don't want to make this one too long for you guys. So if you enjoyed this video and would like to see me make more, give the video a like and maybe a subscribe. Let's say I hit 20 likes on the video, I will make another one. Yes, that seems low, but I'm going to be realistic. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed watching. Have a good day.